Biden and what his presidency means not only for the world but also for the continent. Let's bring into the conversation Ms. Sophie Mokoena, our foreign editor, joining us here in the studio. So listening into what Mpho had said earlier on and listening to some of the people that Sarah spoke to, lots of hope and aspiration in what this presidency would mean for the continent. However, though, our experience with the Barack Obama administration points to something else, that you may speak about mutual respect. However, though, the decisions that were taken, and for instance, the invasion of NATO, and back here in South Africa, where you had the debate between former President Jacob Zuma as well as with Barack Obama around private security companies here in the country.
Well, indeed, you are correct. I think the experience tells us, particularly some of us who have covered the politics in South Africa, but also politics links to international relations, that during the Democrats' administration, when Mandela was the president, not much happened. But it was a nice, friendly relationship, personal relationship, perhaps people to people, but nothing much on trade. You go then to former President Thabo Mbeki and President Bush. It was very hostile, very robust, because the two leaders were very robust and were very firm in terms of what they believed in. But when you look at the practical deliveries, the Republicans did deliver. Today we have the largest contribution that they are making on the continent on health matters, particularly in South Africa, in relation to the HIV and AIDS. And now it has been translated to COVID-19. You saw Donald Trump himself giving us ventilators. It was a process where he was carrying on with what the Republicans have done. But when you look at Obama, you are correct. It was nice. It was like Bill Clinton, nice talk and all of that, but not much. And also the invasion of Libya. So really, under the Democrats, yes, it's not hostile. They are very diplomatic in approach, subscribe to multilateralism, but practically we don't know. Let's hope it will be a different story with Joe Biden, based on what Mpho has said, the relations with South Africa pre-1994 and also post-1994 as the vice president interacting with our former vice president, the former president Kgalema Motlanthe.
Okay, and Mpho, let's get your take on that.
Well, may I remind you that we had a businessman called Patrice Motsepe who committed the whole continent that Africa loves the previous president. But what I foresee happening is that business follows where power is. You're going to find American businesses that would wish to do business on the African continent, having more opportunities or more guts, so to say, to come into the continent. In South Africa, where there's a cross trade of in excess of about towards $15 billion annually, you could see an increase there. So my take is that probably business is going to boom for American businesses on the continent on the basis of how the Biden administration is going to relate with the African countries.
Okay, and let's quickly then focus on this one. The world is watching as the inauguration of Joe Biden, the US president, played out. Many European Union leaders are hoping for a reset in the transatlantic ties, much damaged after the 4 years under Donald Trump's administration. Lucy Ho joins us with a reaction from Europe.
There is huge relief here in Europe, a feeling that a friend is finally back in the White House and 4 difficult years now concluded. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, speaking in the European Parliament, described the inauguration of President Biden as a new dawn, a chance to work with an old ally on a new transatlantic agenda and to reset that transatlantic relationship. Those were sentiments that were echoed by EU Council Council President Charles Michel, who spoke of his desire to form a new EU-US founding pact to coordinate on areas such as security and defence, as well as climate change and the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's hear from EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen speaking on Wednesday morning.
This new dawn in America is the moment we've been waiting for so long. Europe is ready for a new start with our oldest and most trusted partner. And this is why the Commission recently has adopted a new forward-looking transatlantic agenda. And it focuses on where we can together join forces to push for global change based on our common values, interests, and global influence.
Now, whilst there is the sense of a shared agenda once again, with President Joe Biden saying that he will rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, sharing the priority for climate change that has long been one for the EU, as well as re-engaging with multilateral organisations like NATO and the World Health Organization, there is still a wariness here in Europe that perhaps the US is not the trusted ally it once was, that the damage that's been done in the last 4 years may be too great to see an instantaneous reset of that transatlantic relationship, that Europe still needs to be braced to go it alone on the global stage in the weeks and months to come, not least limited to defence and security, but also areas such as migration too. There is also a feeling that President Biden will be so consumed with his domestic agenda that foreign policy may be slightly further down the list. Nonetheless, the EU has issued an invitation to President Biden and members of his administration for an in-person meeting in Brussels once the pandemic allows. Lucy Hoff, SABC News, Brussels.
Meanwhile, in the UK, the main focus of the coming months will be trying to rebuild the so-called special relationship between the two countries. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson had previously been accused of being too close to Donald Trump, which many fear will have an impact on the new relationship with apologies for that. With the new relationship with the United States of America, John Beaver has that report.
The new US President and the current UK Prime Minister have never met. That will change this summer, if not before. President Biden is expected to attend the G7 summit, which is being hosted in the southwest of England, where I am now. And it appears that there's work to be done to improve the relationship between the two men. In 2019, Joe Biden described Boris Johnson as a physical and emotional clone of Donald Trump. They're on different sides of the political spectrum, of course. Joe Biden was against Brexit and was vocal in his opposition of any deal that didn't respect the terms of the Good Friday peace agreement for Northern Ireland. In Parliament today, Boris Johnson was forced to defend his relationship with Donald Trump, which many fear will sour the new relationship between the two countries.
I think it's very important the Prime Minister of the UK has the best possible relationship with the President of the United States. That's part of the job description, as I think all sensible members opposite would acknowledge.
The Prime Minister publicly congratulated the new President on his inauguration, having previously spoken to him after his election victory. Boris Johnson highlighted the fight against COVID, the issue of climate change and defence and security as some of the key areas where the two countries can work together. It's hoped that those shared goals will help rebuild the special relationship, which appears to be under some strain at the moment. John Beaver, SABC News, Bristol.
And in Russia, leaders are less excited for the new administration, despite President Trump's early attempts to forge a friendly relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. He ends his time in power with bilateral ties incredibly strained. In a parting blow, Donald Trump's administration imposed further sanctions on Russia earlier today. And during campaigning, Joe Biden said he'd take an even tougher line on the Kremlin, calling Russia the greatest threat to the United States. Here is Stuart Smith on what Russia expects.
Earlier in the day, President Putin's press secretary told reporters that Russia would seek good relations with the US, but that it doesn't expect anything to change with Joe Biden at the helm, nor would President Putin send further congratulations to Joe Biden on his win, having already sent good wishes after the Electoral College cemented his result. President Biden's incoming team has already sent warning signals to the Kremlin about what to expect, with possible retaliatory measures on their way after a cyber attack last month, which the US accuses Russia of conducting. Also, the incoming National Security Advisor has been incredibly vocally critical of Russia's recent detention of opposition activist Alexei Navalny. Experts, though, agree that even if relations don't improve, they will at least be more predictable. And there is one potential avenue of cooperation for the incoming president and his now counterpart in Russia, President Putin. There is a weapons treaty which is very shortly set to expire, which both presidents would like to renew. They've said that this is a priority, and so it looks like something they can at least look to try and create new avenues of communication, and that could potentially be a starting point for further mutual cooperation. Stuart Smith, SABC News, Moscow.
Well, Mpho, earlier on, one of the reports that came out of The Guardian was that Russia says it remains willing to extend a New START nuclear arms treaty with the US. How do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one because, I wouldn't have expected them to say we are disappointed, our guy lost, because they obviously were quite comfortable with Trump, and which leader wasn't comfortable with Trump? Trump is not a politician; he doesn't understand politics, and therefore those experienced hardcore politicians and tacticians like the Russian president would welcome an opportunity to try and make good with the likes of Joe Biden. I honestly don't see them really going hard on America, in as much as they are having their own differences. And you see, the funny thing about all this, perhaps let's just talk about these two giants, Russia and the US, is that they are very good domestically. But when it comes to their foreign policies, wow, that's where the problem begins. So I guess, yes, there is room. I don't see Biden. Like I said, a Biden administration is similar to Obama's administration. So I don't see them shutting the door to say we don't want to talk to the Russians or anybody for that matter.
So, Sophie, Mpho speaks about Russia and the US being very good with the domestic affairs. And you look at China, for instance, and some people would argue the same, considering that how good the economy of China has been, and also expectations that it could be the only country that have seen growth during 2020. However, though, the Chinese government has announced that they are imposing sanctions on former Trump administrators.
I think it's too little too late, because the guys are gone. But I think China is sending a message that Joe Biden, please try to do something. These guys were just not good for us. But unfortunately, the relations between the United States of America and China will not change much. It might be the tone and the language used, but America will continuously be aggressive when it comes to China, because they are huge competitors. I mean, China is the second largest economy around the world, while the United States of America is the #1 largest economy. But during this pandemic, we saw America battling to rebuild its economy while China is miles ahead, and that competition is going to continue. But generally in Europe, I think the G7 member countries from Europe, it's a sigh of relief, because G7 will function better. The G20 members in general, even South Africa being part of the G20, things will be better. And also NATO, I think the relations are going to improve. And finally, the World Health Organization is happy. I think Tedros was under pressure from Donald Trump. I think for him, it is good riddance.
Well, also a lot changing in Europe, and considering that with Germany as well, Angela Merkel serving her last few months ahead of the elections taking place there in Germany.